Hello, welcome. This is Dr. Drew Leader, Loyola University, Maryland. Um, Talking about what I call the Chessboard of Healing, a concept taken from my new book, The Healing Body, Creative Responses to Illness, Aging, and Affliction. And in these videos, I've been going through the different possibility spaces on this chessboard of healing to which we can move when we're experiencing bodily breakdown consequent to injury, illness, aging, etc. And today I want to talk about the possibility space, the square on the chessboard, called receiving. The notion of an individual making up for a physical deficit by receiving help from other people and their able bodies. Um, we've talked in other videos about various things we can do as individuals. We can work hard to restore our bodily function. We can try to transform our usage of the body. We can try to incorporate technological aids. But often we reach a limit where we simply need to rely on other people to help. Perhaps they're replacing a physical action we can no longer perform. They're going to the store for us when we're homebound, or they're wheeling us around hospital corridors when we can't walk. Sometimes it also takes the form of emotional help. If someone is struggling with severe depression, for example, a caring presence, another person who's both assisting with daily functioning, but also providing encouragement for them to re-engage with the life, can sometimes be literally life-saving. It's not that we can always fix the problem of the person struggling with injury, illness, disability, but to quote Henry Nouwen, the famous priest and author, quote, "The friend who can be silent with us in a moment of despair or confusion, who can stay with us in an hour of grief and bereavement, who can tolerate not knowing, not curing, not healing, and face with us the reality of our powerlessness. That is a friend who cares." And in my own usage of the term, I would say that is a friend whose presence is healing if we can receive it. That's not always easy to do because in our culture, we really value independence, self-reliance, autonomy, and we don't like to see ourselves as someone in need of receiving help. We'd rather be the helper, so to speak, in kind of traditional gender roles. There's the real man who derives self-worth from having physical strength, being a financial provider, being the helper in that sense. There's the true woman who's been valued as being a caregiver for others, children, spouse, aged relatives. Happily, these gender stereotypes are being challenged and transformed, but they still do have a psychosocial effect on many of us, which is why I mention it. So we perceive these patterns in ourselves. But whatever your gender, whatever your age, etc., it's a human accomplishment of an important sort to learn how to receive well, not only to give well, but to receive well. And sometimes that's one of the most difficult accomplishments for people dealing with severe physical limitations, for the reasons I've mentioned. But it has tremendous benefit. We let go of that kind of prideful, isolating self-reliance. We may become closer and more intimate with those who are helping us. And we're kind of acknowledging the truth that human relations are always about interdependency. We're always helping one another, both givers and receivers. Sometimes we're less aware of it, but if we even go to the refrigerator and take out something to eat, it's probably been grown by a farmer. It's probably been trucked to our local grocery store and then placed out there by a grocery worker. And we're being fed through the bodies of other people, just as many ways we were when we were little children. It's just a fact of life. Um, this giving and receiving can be and often is reciprocal. Um, for example, to go back to a family situation, because of the break off of a disc in my back, I just can't lift almost anything. I can't really lift groceries and put them away. My wife happily has a strong enough back, very strong back, so she's able to do that for me. Um, my eyes are better than hers because she has, the beginnings of different kinds of eye diseases. So I will be the one in the family who does the driving at night. Our children come home and help us with certain things, and we continue to help our children with certain things as parents do, even when it's adult children that we're talking about. So receiving is always a part of life that we need to graciously come to terms with. If we're not a gracious receiver, we don't really allow the other person to be a giver and a satisfied giver. Uh, I will close by saying there are many shadow sides to receiving. For example, if we become over reliant on being helped by others and others doing things for us, that undermines our own capacity for autonomy and perhaps even our physical and psychological healing because we're not progressing in relation to our disability. We're instead becoming too passive and too much of a taker. Um, it's also important when we're in the receiving role that we are being treated with dignity and our individuality is being respected. We don't want a giver who controls us or infantilizes us, which unfortunately can take place, for example, in nursing homes. Um, there is a shadow side too we have to be careful about for the caregiver. If, for example, their family member, driven by a sense of guilt, hyper responsibility to do everything for an elderly relative, they may come to feel themselves overwhelmed, resentful, and that's not good for their own life, and it's not good for the relationship. Uh, and we see this vulnerability to exploitation even more in paid caregivers. In our society, it's not infrequent that those are people of color or recently immigrated families, often women. And for all these reasons, it's often treated as a lower end job. It's underpaid, it's underappreciated, this job of paid caregiver. And we need to rethink that because they too are in need of receiving proper remuneration and appreciation. I'll quote from a philosopher, Eva Kateli. We see that we need to structure our societies so that such inevitable dependence, we're all going to be dependent on one another sooner or later, and we are constantly, such inevitable dependence is met with the care, resources, and dignity required for a flourishing life. We again recognize that we need social arrangements enabling those who provide care to be similarly provided with the care, resources, and dignity they require for their own flourishing and for the possibility of doing the work of caring well. So we ultimately end up considering the social and the political, not just the person. For example, to set up a society in which receiving is expected and respected. You might have wheelchair ramps to help people, Braille and sign language for the sight or hearing impaired, but also nationally guaranteed health insurance, good training, living wages, relief time, and respect for caregivers. So receiving the help of an impaired body from other people's bodies is a crucial healing strategy. One we need to support both within our own psyche. We need to accommodate ourselves to being in that position and don't view ourselves as deficient because we need to receive the help of others. But we also need to support this as a community at large in all the ways that I've mentioned. So thanks very much for listening and hope to see you again.